Hey everyone, it's Miss Ulrich. I'm still getting used to this whole screen inside of a screen thing, so still continue to bear with me, please. But today we're going to be talking about consumers, also known as heterotrophs. And so these are organisms that cannot make their own food. And when I say they cannot make their own food, I'm talking about inside of their body. Of course, all of us can go up to our kitchens and, make a bowl of cereal or cook some noodles, stir some noodles on the stove. And yes, that is making food, but that's not making food inside of our own bodies. We're still having to consume other organisms. Okay? So a consumer, or a heterotroph, as it's also known as, is an organism that eats producers or other organisms for energy. So hetero means other and troph means nourishment. And there are many different types of consumers, and there's many ways that we can classify these different consumers, but we're going to look at the ones that I'm sure you guys already know, such as carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores. Speaking of carnivores, I have one right here in front of me. This is Flossie, who wants to steal the show. I'm going to try to keep him out of the picture. I apologize. But there are many different other classifications other than those, and we'll talk about a few of those today. Okay, so an organism that eats plants, hopefully you're saying this in your head, it's a herbivore. So herbivores are going to only eat plants, also eat like the fruit or the nectar of those plants, and those are all classified under herbivores. Now, there are ways that we can separate herbivores into even smaller categories, such as frugivores, which are going to be organisms that eat mainly fruit, such as like fruit bats, like the big flying foxes or the Honduran white bat, aka my favorite. There's browsers that eat mostly leaves, so things like giraffes or okapis. And then there's grazers that are going to eat mostly grass, so things like deer and gazelle. Okay, so again, we can still classify those herbivores into even more classification of what they eat. Okay, so an organism that eats animals or eats another animal, these guys are carnivores. Okay? And so some of us prefer a more meat diet, and so we are really big on our carnivore side, and some of us prefer a more vegetarian diet, so we're more on the herbivore side. Okay? And then part of carnivores, we can split that down into insectivores. And so insectivores are organisms that feed mainly on insects. So here you have a cute little big brown bat, a hedgehog, an anteater, and then you guys even watched a video yesterday talking about Venus flytraps. And so Venus flytraps are a carnivorous plant, and so yes, they still go through photosynthesis, so they are a producer, but they are also a carnivore or an insectivore because they will eat insects in order to get that nitrogen that they need to grow. Okay. And then we have an organism that eats plants and other animals, and this is the best and healthy diet to have for a human, and these are called omnivores. Okay. So some examples of other omnivores besides humans are bears, pigs, hens, and even if you are a vegetarian or a vegan, you are still biologically an omnivore. You are just choosing a diet that does not involve meat or does not involve animal products. Okay. And then we have the scavenger. Okay. And so scavengers, like hyenas we see here, carrying this like decaying bison, it kind of looks like, or cow, and vultures. These guys are the kind of cleanup crew of the forest, or of like different ecosystems, I should say. And so they go around and they find whatever's left over, and they pick up off the scraps and leave nothing but bone left. So they're very important to help keeping our environment from stinking really bad. Okay. And then we have these organisms that also feed on dead organisms, and these guys are called decomposers. And there's a few different types of decomposers where you can also talk about detrivores. And so detrivores are organisms that feed on like waste products of animals. And so that can be things like the earthworm or the millipedes and a lot of bacteria. Okay. And like mushrooms and flies and stuff, those like to feed on a decaying carcass. Okay. And so what a decomposer does is it basically is like sucking the nutrients out of either the poop or the dead organism, and it's turning it into chemicals that it can use or energy it can use. And so that's what it's meaning by decomposing. It's reducing it to a simpler form of matter. Okay, so changing it from one chemical into another that it can use. Okay. And then we have hematophagy. And hematophagy, these are organisms that feed off of animals' blood. And so here on the left, we have a beautiful Miss Mosquito. And mosquitoes, the males do not feed on humans. They only feed on plants, and females feed primarily on humans or other animals. So this is where that whole term of women are bloodsuckers comes from, I guess. And then here on the other side, we have that beautiful bed bug that I know you guys are all like, scratching already, okay? And so bed bugs, both the males and the females do feed on human blood, and you can see that they're both filled with blood in the back here. And I apologize if you hear that howling, that is Pepper upstairs, probably howling at a dog walking by. Okay, and so the rest of this PowerPoint goes into looking at some different examples. So if you want to see some more examples of carnivores, herbivores, omnivores, and decomposers, you can go through and do this. If we were in class, we'd be doing these little symbols in class, but instead I'm going to have you answer a few questions at the end of this video, or after the video, you know what I mean. After the video, guys. So we'll be getting more into carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores this week, and we'll look about how to identify them just based on their teeth. So I hope you're looking forward to that, because I am.